Done by Noon Podcast, episode 2. Today we're going to talk about how to achieve more freedom when you're an ambitious entrepreneur.
You're listening to the Done by Noon Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to achieve more by noon than others in a full day. Serial entrepreneur Dave Ruel and his co-host Chris Lopez share the strategies that will help you optimize your productivity, performance, and lifestyle so you can reach new heights in your business and life. So if you're ready to become the most efficient and effective entrepreneur you know, you're in the right place. Welcome to the show.
This episode is brought to you by the Epic Planner, the first planner made for the entrepreneurial brain. It's easy to fill your day with busy work. You feel like you're getting a lot done. But if you don't make time for bigger projects, you're just spinning your wheels and hurting your business. The Epic Planner is backed by a complete system to strategically plan your next 90 days. Break down projects into actionable bite-sized pieces. Optimize your work week and implement sustainable performance habits in the process. To learn more about the Epic Planner, go to www.epic.co. That's EFFIC.co. And use coupon code PODCAST at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Now, back to Dave and Chris.
Chris!
What up? What up?
I got a hard time, not saying Chris with the Herbert the Pervert accent.
That's disgusting.
Do you see, there was a remix of that, a guy who did a remix of that, was singing like Herbert the Pervert, and he was singing Hotline Bling by Drake.
Oh,
remember
man.
that? It was a few years ago.
I don't remember.
You should look it up on YouTube.
If I was in Costa Rica, then we had limited internet. I was not able to see that.
No, I think it was before that. I think it was when you were in the 6. And it was hilarious because he was singing Hotline Bling, but has Herbert the Perfect from Family Guy. And it's like, you don't want that Hotline Bling, Chris. It only means one thing.
Holy cow! You're really good at that. Should I be afraid? Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe. Dude, what did you say?
So Herbert the Pervert, is that Hébert the Pervers in French?
Herbert le Pervers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a French version of Family Guy. Could be. I don't know. I don't watch much of it. I just find it's hilarious. These guys are funny. Yeah. How's life in Costa Rica, my friend? So hold on. How's the bug situation right now in Costa Rica? That's all I want to know.
I haven't seen a tarantula.
Tarantula. Tarantula. Oh my
tarantula. Gosh. We should tell that story one day about our little surf trip.
Oh gosh. So Chris and I went to a surf camp called Kalon Surf. That's in Dominical, Costa Rica on the Pacific coast.
Beautiful property.
Oh my God, so nice, so beautiful. Anyway, so we were stay there for a week. It was a surf camp, so we were there with a bunch of friends, some who knew how to surf pretty well, guys like us who were just starting out. And anyway, I get there, but what I didn't know about Costa Rica is that there's actually humongous bugs in Costa Rica. So
it's like Jurassic Park.
Well, I think there's some kind of breach, interdimensional breach. It's like fucking Pacific Rim. I think, this kaiju's coming out of it. And these things are humongous. I mean, so I remember we were there by the pool one night. So first of all, it was infested with these big ass locusts, the big grasshoppers.
They were like giant grasshoppers. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, these things are crazy big. I mean, we're talking about 6-inch long grasshoppers that have an erratic flight path. It's terrible. Then I remember that night we were sitting by the pool and I see in the living room that there's this thing flying in the house. I was like, oh shit, there's a bat that got into the house. So I just get in the house and all of a sudden, I can't see it. I look at the TV and there's a giant moth landed on the TV that's obstructing about a third of the TV screen. That thing was at least a foot long in diameter. It was humongous. I mean, it was a moth. I was like, holy smokes, that's crazy.
It had the
Then,
wingspan that you would find of most birds in like Toronto. Like
oh yeah,
it, yeah.
that thing eats birds. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that's crazy. Anyway, next morning I wake up. There's a giant ass tarantula under my door, crawling up. So I chase it. So it's crawling up. So I chase it, and so it's. I think it's gone at that point. I come back at night after a surf session. And I'm going to take a shower. So I take the towel from the rack and just put it candidly like over my shoulder. And there's that. I assume it's the same. Maybe it's another one. I hope it's the same. Spider that just like flies into the air, jump like lands on my other shoulder. I just like, and listen, I hate bugs. Like I'm literally afraid. I'm afraid of bugs. Period. I just, yeah, I just can't handle it. Anyway, I just corner it in the shower. Our buddy Adam Steer comes in and kills it for me because I can't. But it's like it doesn't like it, when he kills it, like it doesn't splash or anything like that. It just like barely changes shape. Just the legs that just like get
Yeah, it's
together.
like you're
But
knocking it out, but it's
yeah,
like the body
yeah.
of it is so robust that you can't squish it like you normally would any other bug.
Yeah, I was like, no, that thing is not dead. But make sure it's dead. Let's burn it. Let's do something. But anyway, and I do that. And the last night I remember, so I have that nice, big king size bed, white sheets. I open the bed sheets at night, and there's that giant cockroach, which was probably like, I don't know, 4 inches long. That is just walking in my bed. I was like, no, no. Oh, dude, it was yeah. That's my experience with Costa Rica and the giant bugs and the giant bugs from another dimension who
You
come
know,
out.
it's actually worse where I live
Oh
because
no, I'm never going to visit
we were
you.
on,
You know that, Chris.
we were on the Pacific side of Costa Rica. I live on the Caribbean side where the jungle, it's a lot more lush and more humid because the jungle is literally kisses the sea. So when I talk about things being Jurassic Park, like the leaves are sometimes you'll get leaves off of trees that are maybe 1 or 2 meters in diameter.
Wow.
It's like it's insane. And so the bugs are a different story there. So you talk about 4-inch cockroaches, like that's a regular size cockroach where I live. It's nuts. And so it's very difficult sometimes because I'm not really big into bugs. My tolerance has been I'm very tolerant of them now. I'm a lot better than I was before, like a lot better. I mean, I was a city kid growing up. Like all I knew was the city. And so bugs for me was just like, it was no problem. Like sometimes Toronto would get mosquitoes in the summer, but it would be nothing compared to what we would get here in Costa Rica. So I'm a lot better now, but just like from a contrast perspective, if you ever do decide to come visit me, it's a lot worse on where I live. Then, not to deter you because I love your company and everything, but that's what it's like.
We'll meet on neutral grounds.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Remember,
So,
I live in Winterfell. I live like where it's snowing for 6 months. I mean, there's no bugs, there's no roaches or anything like. There's mosquitoes in the summer. That's a bad thing. But other than that,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, dude. We're going to talk about freedom today, Chris. We're going to talk about. I think freedom is what. Well, it's what most entrepreneurs go in business for. That's I think all what we seek when we get started. What was appealing to you when you started your first business? Like I know you started out of necessity when you had your first daughter AJ when you were 21, and you had to drop out of school. But when what was your main motivation when it comes to freedom?
it was the time thing, and I'm very much a believer that time is the only non-renewable currency that we have. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you acquire skills to be able to make money. And if you take care of your body and you take care of your health, you can create or make energy for you to be able to handle certain things in life. But I think time is the only thing that we can't make or create. Like it's not renewable. We can create more time for ourselves in the sense of being able to create systems or hiring within our business, but a second gone is a second gone. We can't get that back. And so for me, being able to spend a lot of time with my growing family, because at the time, as you know, I was 21 when we had AJ, but I actually didn't really start my first personal training business until I was 25, maybe. Yeah, I think it was 25. And so for me, it was time. Time was the most important thing when I went into the online space and started to do some marketing and sales, because I wanted to be able to spend more time with my family, and I wanted to be able to create a lifestyle where my business revolved around my life and not my life around the business. So that was the biggest thing for me. It was time, being able to have more time.
Yeah, I think it's one of the main things. I think, like, you'll tell me if you agree, but I've kind of established there's just 3 layers to freedom, or 3 types of freedoms that entrepreneurs or people that go in business strive for, or that they want. First, as you said, freedom of time, right? They want to do things when they want. They want to have more time for this or that, whatever that is. I think second is the big one. I think that's going to tell you, I think everybody wants more time, really, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Like, it's, as you said, as a human, that's our most finite resource that we have. But I think what separates entrepreneurs is that they seek freedom of creation, meaning that they, like a lot of us, like came in like from, maybe you had a corporate job and you work for someone else, and you had the urge of creating your own thing, of living by your own rules, doing whatever the hell you wanted. So time, doing what you want, things when you want, but what you want as well, by the freedom of creation. I think for me, that was one of the big ones too, more than time. I think when you're young, time, I think you don't value time as much, maybe you, because you had a kid young. For me, it was more about like, I just don't want to work for anyone else. I just want to build my own thing and do whatever the hell I want,
Well, retrospectively for me, if I look back, I had a big problem with authority. And so I did work a corporate job, and I worked the system in high school and in college. And, and I respected my coaches, and I still keep in touch with some of my coaches from before. But like, if I look at some of the jobs that I had, like I remember a story when I was younger that really accentuates this. And I used to work with my dad used to work for Xerox, which was a copier making company. He was an immigrant, and so he was a line worker, and he worked his way up through there, and he was able to get me a summer job because they were offering students summer job things. And it was sitting in the middle of there was no natural light. It was all artificial light. And I was sitting in the middle of a plant, and I would test copiers all day. And I remember one of the managers on a power trip came up to me and wanted to see the work that I had done. And the work that I had done was a matter of just having a bunch of pieces of paper that were scanned on this copier, making sure that everything was centered. And he was an asshole. So he was a bit of a jerk, and he and I did not get along. And I remember one day I just kind of like threw the production stuff, like what he wanted to see from me, I just threw it at him on his desk. And that, in retrospect, that wasn't a good decision on my part, because I got that job because of my dad. And I know my dad, I didn't want my dad to have to pay the consequences for my insubordination or my lack of respect for authority. So I shouldn't have done it, but that was probably a telltale moment for me. And there are others going back, but like, for me, as you were saying, it's the autonomy of creation and the autonomy of being able to do what you want. Because looking back at things, I think I really had a big problem with authority, as bad as that sounds. Yeah.
I was the same, man. It was just, I had a hard time. It's funny because there's like a joke in my family, like a running joke, that I was in kindergarten, and it's, so there was 2 case scenarios at kindergarten. Either I was not at school because I was like hanging out with my grandpa and driving around in his Jeep. My grandpa had a Jeep, and I was just like, he's like, hey, what do you want to do? You want to go to school, or you want to hang out with grandpa in his Jeep? I was like, yeah, I want to hang out with grandpa. So I spent I would say half of the year hanging out with my grandpa.
That's fantastic.
Oh, dude. I mean, it was great. But, I come from a small island, like fishing town. And it was like, Dave doesn't want to draw snowman. He wants to draw lobster traps. So this got running joke in my family about lobster traps that like, yeah, ultimately Dave is always going to do whatever he wants and he's not going to listen to the rules because, he just wants to draw lobster traps. But it started really early for me, like the fact that I didn't want it to like follow a certain mold, and I think like that's what's when you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I was kind of the same. I think this is the early stages of entrepreneurship. I think this is when you realize that, okay, I'm not cut off to stay in a 9 to 5 job and do something. I need to do things on my own term. And I think it manifests when we're talking here about freedom, but I think it manifests in, I think early on, maybe in our teens or early 20s with that, that need for freedom, right? So yes, obviously freedom of time, but freedom of creation, doing what we want. And I think
And what was the third?
the third one is financial freedom. And I think it's a given, but I think it depends on how you approach business. I think for some people, financial freedom, I would say financial freedom should be always important because, obviously money is fuel for your business. I think some people see it like as an ultimate goal, like they want to be millionaires, they want to be whatever, billionaires, whatever they want to be. I think the money part of it or the amount of money really depends on your personality. Sometimes you will want to compensate for a lack of something with money, and that happens a lot with, for example, no, but it's serious. Like when people, like, let's say, don't have great relationships with their dads, or grew up in dysfunctional families or things like it has a lot to do with family most of the time, but they want to compensate that by like getting a lot of money, saying, oh, look at me, like I did it, right? But I think the main motivation behind it is not really just about the money. You know what I mean? It's about showing up that, oh, look at me, I can do it. You know what I mean? It just compensates for a lack of something. I know for me, like I think I don't know about you, but for me, my vision of money is I see it as fuel. Like for me, like money is fuel. So it's like filling up my car. It will get me where I want to have. I need it to get there, but it's not the most important thing. For me, enjoying the ride and the journey is more important than the money itself. So I really see money as fuel and for what it is. I'm not necessarily that motivated by the amount of money that I can make. You know what I mean? What about you?
Similarly, I see it the same way, although I like to call it a tool. I like to use it as money is generally a tool that I can use to help create more value in the world. And I think the more money I have, the more my ability to be able to help people, because the more people I can reach and the more things that I can do with it. And so I see it with that. I mean, I grew up with and not to say that all immigrants are like this, but my parents grew up they immigrated to Canada from the Philippines in the 70s, and I was born in Canada. I was born in Toronto, like born and raised, but I grew up very much with a scarcity type of mindset. So there was a lot that I had to heal, and I'm still doing a little bit of the healing as well in terms of my relationship with money. And it wasn't until I started to realize that it's just a thing, and it is a tool for you to be able to do better in this world. And when I started to heal my relationship with it and started to see it as that's when I started to really notice that it started to flow a little bit more. Because I mean, if you look at the root word of money, it's like people call money currency, and the root word of currency is current. And money is very much there to be able to flow. It's there to be spent and to be acquired. And you just have to keep it kind of going in that sense. And so when I started to see it as an avenue for me to be able to do better things and to be able to, not necessarily but be able to use to help better people's lives, it really changed. It was a big game changer for me.
I think there's a big, interdependency between the freedom of creation and the financial freedom. Meaning, if you want to create what you want, you will need that fuel. You will need that money, and vice versa. I feel like, I don't know about you, but for me personally, when I for some of my businesses, it happened at some point that we were strapped for cash, and financial freedom. I mean, when you have financial problems, when your company like is lacking money and you need that money to, because hey, I need to buy my next inventory and I not sure if I'm going to have cash. That type of stress that, lands on your shoulders will, you will chase pretty much shortcuts. So you will not have freedom of creation if you don't have that financial freedom. You know what I mean? So I think, as much as, if you're like me and you're like, you value money just as, or you like as a tool, as fuel, you got to realize that it's important to have that. And sometimes when you get started or you're in business, you have to pay attention to it. So yeah, there's so much dependent that if you go too much deep, let's say in like, I'm going to create and create and create and do whatever the hell I want, but not take care of money per se, because I just want to create and run my business, you might run into problems. And doing so, you will not be able to create what you want to create because you have, that you don't have that financial freedom that you want, right? And that's going to lead you to not have the freedom of time. I think, but here's the thing: you can have financial freedom and freedom of creation. That doesn't mean you're going to have freedom of time, And I think freedom of time is more of a personal thing. It's more about, your own personal choices, your own personal structure and systems that you put in place, rather than, maybe the nature of your business.
Yeah, I think freedom of time is about setting boundaries and, like you said, creating the systems and surrounding yourself with the right people or the right team so that you have the ability to work on your business and not directly in your business all the time. And so for me, it's a lot like raising kids. Like, I believe that kids need boundaries. And I think from a time standpoint, we have to live by certain values and really understand what those values are within ourselves and be able to create boundaries so that we live by those values. And I think that really opens up the time aspect for a lot of people once they have those boundaries and they have those rules.
100%. It's for you, because here's the thing: business happens, right? You start your business, and most of us, we don't anticipate the amount of time that goes into running that business, right? And let's be honest, like, most of us didn't go to school to to run a business. Like, we don't know.
No,
we just
not at all.
figure it out as we go, right?
Yeah.
And it's a big game of figuring things out. So, we're just reacting to it, right? So it's just a matter of understanding, okay, what do I really want? How can I improve that in order to reach that freedom and have the right? It's for you to find the right mix as well, right? We talked about the 4-hour work week in the first episode, but not everybody. I don't think most entrepreneurs want to work only 4 hours a week. I think most entrepreneurs, that's a metaphor for time. They want more time. But I don't know about you, Chris, but I love working. I love working on my business. I love creating. I love generating things. I love creating value. That's what drives me. Like, more than just like working less. You know what I mean? Because guess what? Let's say I would have all the time in the world, what would I do more? Would be to create more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
exactly.
That's my modus operandi. So I think most of us are like that, but it's just finding the right mix. And I think the timing as well of that mix, meaning like, okay, now I have maybe to work more on my financial freedom. Maybe I should work on earning a little bit more money right now. And while I do that, okay, let's look into, what I can create right now that will fulfill me on that side while generating the money, and also building the right, maybe the right systems, having the right structure in order to achieve that freedom of time that I want. So, and it's very rare that, you're going to be like, have all the three freedoms figured out at the same time. They might come in different stages. So yes, you will have to work on the financial part first, then maybe work on the creation part first, then on the financial part first, or vice versa, and then work on the time aspect of it. I think most entrepreneurs work on the time freedom last, although it's what they want first.
Well, I think the other thing to really mention here is that it's also a myth that you're going to be, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's also a myth to think that you're going to be a 33.3% split on all three aspects of that: time, money, and creation. Like, you're going to, if you've read, I can't remember if it was in Essentialism or in The One Thing. but he talks not about balancing, but about counterbalancing. And your life is very much like that too. Sometimes you're going to be spending a lot of time at work because you have a certain project, and you're going to be spending a lot of time at home. And then other times, if you'll be spending a lot of time at home with the kids because you really want to do that and everything. And then, so it's not necessarily, in the end, it all works out to be 50-50, but on a micro scale, you're always counterbalancing one aspect and forgoing the other for a certain point in time, especially as an entrepreneur. So in your example, when we have like these three, time, creation, and money, yes, it's like what you were saying, we're going to have to spend a lot more time making the money, and maybe our creation or our time management or how we allocate our time will suffer. And then sometimes we're going to really want to spend our time and be selfish with our time because we need it at that point. Yeah. But then at the same time, the amount of money that we make, because we're not maybe working as much, will suffer a little bit unless you have the right systems in place, and your creation time might not be as important. And then I think in the end, in life, it's always about not necessarily balancing the three all the time, but being able to counterbalance and understanding that that's just the regular model of how things are going to flow in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, understanding the pattern that you're in, maybe understanding the context that you're in as well. But also, I think one of the big mistakes that people make is that, I call that ambition appropriation, is that they're going to look at someone else's lifestyle or someone else's way of doing things, and they will think that, oh, maybe I'm not doing enough, or this is the reality, and this is not what I do, so I should copy what they do. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, let's say the guy is into cars and has like a beautiful Ferrari, and you're like, oh my God, he has a Ferrari and I don't have a Ferrari. And then you're like, all of a sudden, you're like, you work your ass off. You don't have freedom of time anymore. You do things just for the money side of things, just to have the Ferrari because you want to keep up with your friend. Where in the end, you don't really care about the car. You know what I mean? Like it's
all for what?
But it happens a lot. I think in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of like flashy, like I don't know. It seems like a lot of entrepreneurs. Wow, maybe not entrepreneurs, but I feel like maybe it's the social media era that fuels that, where you see a lot of shiny things and you're like, oh, this is the reality, or maybe I should go for this because if not, I'm not a real entrepreneur. You know what I mean? And then I think there's a lot of fakeness and bullshit that just being spread out everywhere about what it should be. And in the reality, it's all about what you want. Hey, there's nothing wrong if you want a Ferrari and a nice car, but make sure it's what you really want. Like not just to do because, you saw a Ty Lopez video and he has like 2 cars in his garage and you're like, oh, I feel like I need that. It doesn't matter. Like
I was just thinking about Ty. Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about Ty. Like I remember seeing one of his first videos the first time I was in Costa Rica, and he was just like, yeah, I'm just sitting here in front of my garage. And then the whole thing was like about how many books he read or whatever. But he was just like, yeah, I'm sitting in front of my garage and I've got,
which is still bullshit also. So
right. And then I did a parody video for my subscribership where we the only car when we were in Costa Rica, we hadn't moved yet, but the only car that they had available was this rundown passenger van. And because there were 7 of us who was traveling, like that's all that they could give us because they didn't have anything else that would fit us. Like we couldn't fit into a regular SUV for us like a family of 5 would. Like we needed this bus basically. So I filmed.
But Chris, you can't fit 7 people in a Ferrari. It's impossible.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I filmed the video holding my cell phone, my iPhone in front of me. Yeah, I'm just standing in front of my 1983 minivan right now, but that's not what the important thing is. The important thing is, and then I think I talked about the relationship with my family.
It's knowledge.
That's right. Man. That's what it was. It was knowledge.
Shit. But what I mean is that it's super well engineered to make you think that this is what you need and then you need to buy this, right? Is this the reality? Of course not. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's his reality either. I think just like marketing. But we're being marketed.
Marketing 101.
But I got friends though who are into cars and they absolutely love it. They have like a smaller house in mind, but they have like fantastic cars. Their cars are worth more than their house. But they're into cars. That's their thing. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, okay, I don't understand it, but I'm not going to buy a car because these guys, like, I don't care about like we've been running on one Karen and I work from home both. We operate a business from home, and we don't need two cars. We just have one car, and we just do away with one car. It's been like that for like 10 years. And
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't care. I don't give a shit about cars. Like, I don't care about speed. I'm the slowest driver ever. My wife makes fun of me. I drive super slow, but I got a perfect record. I just don't make accidents or anything like that. But I don't know, man. Yeah, you got to live according to what you truly want, and find that right mix for you. So, it's for you to understand that, hey, how does my time look like and what it should look like? How, am I fulfilled with what I do? Am I creating what I want to create? Is my business fulfilling me, or what I do in my business fulfilling me on a daily basis? And also, it's like, hey, do I have enough fuel in the tank to do it? Do I have enough money in the bank to fuel my ambitions and what I truly want? And the big thing to be careful about, as I said, is ambition appropriation. So, like, look into, be honest with yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror, and I don't know about you, Chris, but now I try not to look at anyone like online. I just don't follow anyone. You look at my Instagram, and I follow like my own brands. My wife, I follow the most interesting man in the world. That's the only influencer that I follow, Jonathan Goldsmith, because I love his character, but I love the guy too. The guy lives in Vermont, like very much like similar lifestyle than I have here in New Brunswick. I like that, but I don't follow anyone, and honestly, I don't care. And every time I met actually big time influencers in real life, and I'm lucky enough to have like access to this type of people, I was disappointed for the most part, because what they were portraying online or in their fantasy world that they portray is that's not who they are in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
No, yeah.
have you felt that?
That kind of stuff.
Have you met people like that just like they saw like fucking ballers online, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, no, I'm sure I like that.
Yeah.
Guy.
You know what? I find, and I have met a few influencers who like to pose by the cars and who like to pose with the jewelry and everything. And even like, to me, it just seems very insecure to me that they have to be able to portray this certain persona online or whatever. And I get it. Like, maybe it's just a marketing ploy, and they don't have to be exactly like that when you meet them. I've met some influencers that they're like that online, but when you meet them, they're genuinely really, really nice people and down to earth. And then some people are just, but then there are others that are completely insecure and are all about the show. And I think when it comes down to it, and you and I will probably talk about this in a future episode, it comes down to what you value and what you hold dear to yourself. And for me, it doesn't matter how many people I follow. Like, I'm at the point in my life right now, and granted, I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm older than you now.
But you'll always be older than me, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right now. Only right now, Dave, am I older than you. But
hold on. You're older than me, but you look younger than me until you're 59 years old, and then you go full Mr. Miyagi mode.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's exactly how it works.
You're always going to be wiser than me, though, and that's the thing.
I'm going to be catching flies and chopsticks really soon.
Gosh. Well, you can do that. You can do that now?
No, I can't do that now. I got to work on it.
I'm disappointed. You must train.
But I was going to say, like, I've gotten to a point in my life and my business, and mind you, there are a ton of people that make more money than I do. There are a ton of people that have, a bigger house than I have, and a ton of people that have more stuff than I do. But I'm at a point right now where I'm really happy with where I am in life. And so it doesn't really matter as much to me, even if I follow a bunch of people or I follow all these influencers and everything. It doesn't affect me as much as it did when I remember when I was 30 years old and when I was still reaching and striving for this certain thing. So I think it all depends on the place you are in your life and who you are and what you're comfortable.
I think maturity comes into play too with time. I think you like 100%. The more like that's how it is. If you're listening to us and you're like in your 20s and you still feel like you have to please someone, like I'm telling you right now, like it kind of goes away in your 30s and I guess your 40s. I'm 37 now, but I realize that now it's like I don't care much about pleasing anyone, other maybe than, myself, my family, my kids, but I don't really give a shit about anything. And it's funny because, we think about, when you think about yourself when you're older, it's like, I can't wait not just to give a shit about anything. You're like an old man, but that's the way, like, I think things evolve. Right. So I think with
Yeah, no.
maturity, with life in general, like, I think you care less about, pleasing others. So I think you reveal your more honest truth. I think maybe this is the root of, like, the midlife crisis. It's like maybe you're finding your true self finally. Maybe it's not just, maybe the midlife crisis is not about, doing the things you didn't do in your 20s. Maybe it's about actually finding your calling. Maybe it's about, like, hey, maybe I'm done pleasing, things that I didn't want to do. It sucks. I guess it sucks when you didn't want to get married and got married or things like that. But I think overall, it might be a way for you to express that freedom. I don't know.
Well, I think a midlife crisis is if you don't end up growing up. I think if you end
Yeah.
up, you're still caught up in, if you're still caught up in that whole people pleasing thing, because it doesn't necessarily come with age, not giving a shit. And when I say not giving a shit, like, you and I still take care of ourselves from a health standpoint. Like, so we still care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just that we're doing it for ourselves now. We're not doing it for others. We know the value
Right.
in doing that. But I think when it comes to other things like materialistic things or being able to have the show or whatever, like, when you start to develop certain values, or when you start to think of things bigger than yourself, and you realize that you're only a microcosm, or you're only a small part of the entire big picture of things, I think then that's when you start to realize that that a lot of the stuff really doesn't matter. A lot of those materialistic things doesn't matter. And it all comes back down to kind of like what you said, where, time is really important. The autonomy to be able to create things is incredibly important. And money and being able to use it as a fuel so that you can add value into this world, that's what's really important. And you don't really feel the need to show other people that, because and you're secure within yourself that you are doing that and you're taking care of that yourself.
That's correct. So bottom line, guys, and that's going to be our final words today, but find your own mix, figure out where you're at right now and how you need to mix your, how you want your freedom of time, your freedom of creation, and your financial freedom, to how you need to mix these three right now in your own context. And yeah, I think once you do that, and it's great thing is that it changes with time. It changes with, how you are at a specific time. And that's what's great about it. I think, once you understand that and you seek that and you acknowledge that, okay, well, this is what it is right now, and this is the right mix that I need to do, and feels like the appropriate recipe for now. And as long as it makes you fulfill, let's say, overall on the long term, you're winning. That's it. Chris, winning. Chris, thank you so much, my friend. Always great to talk about all these things. I hope, you guys listening at home or in the car or wherever you are, that resonated with you. And we'd love to hear more about, what fuels you, what's part of the three freedoms that, motivate you, or maybe motivated you to get, in business and become an entrepreneur. So we'd like to hear about it. Chris, enjoy the bugs. Have fun this week. Fight them, kill as many as possible for me. If ever I want to visit again, like, let's try to, I think we should, like, you should have these giants, like, things that just zaps like mosquitoes in restaurants and stuff, like how do you call that? Like the purple lights, like, yeah. Giant ones, but it would probably catch
What I've
fire.
heard. What I heard some resorts do is they have like this infrared or this sonar thing that keeps the bugs away, and they have it surrounding the entire property. So it's like this faint signal that human ears can't pick up. Yeah, and it keeps the bugs out. I'll think about doing that for our our little property compound there.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
but I think you might. Oh, have you seen? So there's. You don't have the TV at home, but on Netflix right now, there's a movie called a Netflix show called The Witcher. It's about that guy who is like a fantasy world, and he kills beasts and monsters. Maybe you should hire a Witcher full time. Could be a power move.
Just for when you come, man. Just for when you come.
He's going to be my best friend. All right, Chris. Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you next week. See you guys.
All All right, my man. Have a good day, guys.
Take care.
You have just listened to the Done by Noon podcast. If you are interested in hearing more, do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Click on the 5 stars or check out our free tools and trainings at donebynoonpodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and stay awesome. We'll see you next time.